sincere, but it's not. It's sincere. If American citizens colluded with a hostile foreign power to hurt the United States, we would want to know about it. We would never defend disloyal behavior like that, no matter who the president was. So for the last year, we have consistently held back. Even as ominous signs accumulated, we struggled against calling the Mueller investigation a partisan witch hunt designed to topple a president. We didn't want to think that it was. Unfortunately, it's getting harder to deny that now. As federal judge T.S. Ellis put it last week, Mueller is seeking only information that, quote, would reflect on Mr. Trump or lead to his prosecution or impeachment. There you have it. That's not a law enforcement investigation he's describing, assuming it ever was. That is a hit job on a democratically elected leader. The left knows this, and of course it pleases them. Removing Trump from office is the only principle they recognize. But instead of admitting that, they lecture the rest of us in grave tones about the rule of law, like they really care what the Constitution says. Of course they don't. As Pat Buchanan pointed out in a pretty smart piece over the weekend, Mueller doesn't have the power to take Trump out. No independent counsel would. The only institution empowered to prosecute a president is the Congress. The presidency is a political office. Voters get to decide who fills it. Other elected officials check the president's power, not unaccountable investigators or rogue FBI agents, not Peter Strzok or Lisa Page, the Congress. If the president has committed a crime, the Congress can put him on trial. That's called impeachment. They could do it tomorrow if they wanted. It's in the Constitution. In impeachment, and this is the best part, takes place openly, in public. The rest of us can watch it and evaluate it every step of the way. There are no redacted documents or leaked text messages from creepy FBI agents. The whole thing is transparent, and that's how democracies are supposed to operate, openly. Ironically, the one group that understands this is the Democratic base. Kind of amazing, but it's true. They badly want to impeach Donald Trump, and they say so. Their leaders in the Democratic Party lie about it, and they do it for the same reason they lie about everything, because all they care about really is power. They don't want to scare voters before the midterm election, so they don't mention impeachment, and instead they use unelected bureaucrats with guns to crush the presidency. And the worst part is it's working. Byron York is chief political correspondent at the Washington Examiner. Jonathan Turley is a law professor at George Washington University, and they both join us tonight. Professor Turley, first to you. Why not just say we want to impeach the president? We think he's committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Here, they do think that. Why should that be embarrassing? It's a constitutional procedure.
Well, they certainly should be open about it if that is their motivation. And there's no question that the preferred route for the Constitution is to have a trial in the Senate after impeachment in the House,
right?
To have that decision. You can always still impeach someone once they are removed from office. There is an ongoing academic debate whether a sitting president can be indicted, but most prosecutors yield to the impeachment process.
I mean, there's no debate over what's the most democratic mechanism for dealing with a president who's done something wrong. It's by using the representatives that voters elected, correct?
Right, that's the preferred way. I mean, the fact is that the framers gave us a process by which we could first impeach and then remove a president.
Right.
And you, as long as you can prove high crimes and misdemeanors. Clearly, some Democratic members are running on that. I don't see the problem, frankly, with Trump also running on that. I think that for Trump to say, look, this is about my impeachment, I have no problem with that, because obviously that is an underlying narrative for the other side. But I think what will have to happen first is Mueller will have to issue a report, and then if Congress changes hands, particularly the House, you could very well see an impeachment process.
So, Byron, the question of the subpoena, we saw yet another piece of information leaked in the press recently that the Mueller people are considering subpoenaing the president. The White House is saying on background, we may reject that. Where does it stand?
That's where it stands right now. We don't know if Mueller is really going to do this. We have never had this come to a conflict in history. The Nixon case was about subpoenaing documents, about evidence, not actually testimony. With Bill Clinton, Ken Starr subpoenaed Bill Clinton, and then they worked something out so that Ken Starr would withdraw the subpoena while Bill Clinton testified. But he did get a few do things that you would not get if you went in front of a grand jury. He got to keep his lawyers in the room with him. He did it on video. He didn't go to a grand jury room, and the time was limited. So on the other hand, he actually did testify. I think what you're seeing right now with this case is that Trump has realized, perhaps lately, that this is more of a political fight. This is an impeachment fight more than anything. So while his lawyers talk about whether a president can or cannot be subpoenaed or called to testify, Rudy Giuliani, who's really more of a spokesman right now, and others are working to discredit the independent counsel or the special counsel in this case, because if it does come to the House, and by the way, the reason Democrats aren't doing this now is because they're a minority in the House of Representatives.
Well, sure, but they're also not talking about it, most of them. I mean, some fringe members are.
Remember the 2006 example when George W. Bush's numbers were just terrible. The Iraq War was going terribly. The Democrats were running to try to win Congress in those midterms in 2006. A lot of Democrats were talking about impeachment, but the public really didn't want it. Nancy Pelosi came out about this time of the year in 2006 and said impeachment is off the table. Today, though, 71% of Democrats in a recent poll said they want to see Trump impeached if Democrats take the House.
And the leaders know that full well.
So the leaders know that.
Of course, and that's why it's so disingenuous for them to deny it. If you were running the president's legal team, and you should be, I would say, would you allow him to speak to anyone from Robert Mueller's investigation?
You know, look, that's a tough question, but I actually think that he should have taken the deal to go some time ago and sit down. I wrote a column months ago that said it's a good deal if they stick with the 4 categories that Dowd and Ty Cobb negotiated. Could you prepare the president for that? I think you could. And I think that was the quickest way to diffuse this. The question is really the end game. If you basically defy the subpoena, I think that he will lose. The existing case law favors Mueller. And once he wins in that process, you give him a court order where you can negotiate with him, but he's in a much stronger position. He could demand, and a court could very well go along with a conventional grand jury appearance. So the question is, what is the end game that you're trying to lay out? I personally believe the president could sit through it. People keep on saying he's going to be a disaster, he's going to burst into flames. I disagree with that. I've done a lot of depositions that were more complicated than this, and I think you could prepare this president for this.
Boy. And Trump has done a lot of depositions himself.
He has experience on his side, right?
Having interviewed him many times and seen very precise people go to jail.
True.
Having fallen into perjury traps by experts.
Look, there's risks on both sides here. There's no question about it. So there's no risk option. So, you know.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Joel Payne helped direct advertising on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, and he joins us tonight. So, Joel, it's a really simple question. Impeachment is a constitutional mechanism. There's nothing to be embarrassed about here. As a factual matter, if you think the president has committed crimes, he's demonstrably unfit to preside over the country, and 71, you just heard Byron say, 71% of Democrats believe that, then why lie about it and say we're never going to impeach him when that's what you do to a president you think is...
Man, after listening to that open, you almost convinced me that was going on, Tucker. That's not what's going on. Democrats aren't lying to cover up their desire to impeach the president. They're trying to find the truth.
71%?
They're trying to find the truth as to what happened here. They're trying to get to the bottom of why this president and why his team and his inner circle have decided to cover up their engagement with the Russian government. That's what this is about.
What engagement with the Russian government? I mean, this is such.
Well, we know
familiar.
that.
I hate to plow the same ground once more.
We know that 3 members of the president's inner circle on the campaign have already been either have pleaded guilty or have come up with plea deals.
To what exactly? Colluding with Russia? Oh no, none of them. None of them.
Well, Tucker, the investigation's
No, look, I'm not defending, nor would I ever defend Paul Manafort's sleazy business dealings, which everyone has known about for 25 years.
Campaign.
Great.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with colluding with the Russian government. He was working for the Ukrainian government, which is, by the way, a separate government. Hostile hostile to the Russian government.
If you are comfortable with your president having a chair of his campaign that had that kind of interaction with that type of person at the head of his campaign, great, go with that.
I wouldn't be comfortable having dinner with Paul Manafort personally. Okay. I'm just saying that. So this is not.
We've agreed on something.
Look, but is this a referendum on the moral character of Paul Manafort? Okay, then I guess he pleads guilty. But this is no. It's a question very specifically about whether or not officials in the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government to skew the election. There's no evidence of that. There's no suggestion that happened. This whole thing is a crock designed to do what impeachment is designed to do, which is take out a president.
I was actually listening to that conversation you had with Byron and with Jonathan, and what's interesting to me is this. You know, the president has not cooperated with this investigation at all. All we hear is tweet, 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 tweet. And I know you wanted to talk about the fact that the poll numbers are coming down on the Mueller investigation. You want to know why? Because this president is running an opposition campaign against Bob Mueller and his entire team for the last 6 months.
Yeah, well, you're right.
So hey, listen, if I spent 6 months beating you down and saying that Tucker Carlson likes to steal,
Mueller.
If I said Tucker Carlson likes to steal cars at night after the story every night, I'm sure I could get a number of people to believe that.
So the president's posture should be what? Hire an exclusively partisan Democratic staff. Whatever you do to me. Yeah. You can take my campaign chairman and show up with guns drawn at 4:30 in the morning and roust his wife out of bed. You can take Admiral Flynn and on the basis of like no real crime and force him to plead guilty by threatening his son. And I just have to stand there and be like, oh, that's totally cool. It's the rule of law. That's not the rule of law.
The president should be honest. He should be forthright. By the way, if I hear perjury traps too. Perjury traps sound to me, you know what that sounds like to me? You're afraid of your client not being able to tell the truth.
First of all, he's not my client.
I'm not talking about you. I'm saying the president's legal team.
Martha Stewart, a threat to no one, under investigation by this same group of people, roughly speaking, for insider trading. In the end, she went to prison not for insider trading, but because she, quote, lied to a federal agent. Anything you say that can't be proved, if you freelance a little bit, you can go to jail. It happens all the time. That's a real thing. As a liberal, I think you'd be upset about that.
Well, I'm upset about the fact that we have a president that we can't trust in front of a grand jury or in front of an investigative panel. We can't trust that he can tell the truth.
Let me just ask. I don't know how many lawyers you know. Go ask the next 3 lawyers you talk. And I'm sincere. Okay. Liberal, doesn't matter what their politics are. Would you talk to the FBI if you weren't compelled to? And not one of them will say yes, because they're terrified of what we were just talking about, getting busted on a perjury charge for misspeaking to a federal agent.
Tucker, if you and I can't agree on the fact that the president should be willing to go in front of the FBI and tell his honest-to-God story about what happened with this, then we've got bigger problems here.
Really?
If we can't trust the president, if we can't trust our president to not perjure himself in front of Bob Mueller and his team, that's a problem.
Do you think
that's a problem for the president?
Do you think that Martha Stewart should have gone to prison?
This is not about Martha Stewart.
It's about every American in the last 10 years that I've been paying attention who went to federal prison for perjury while speaking to a federal agent. Would you talk to the FBI?
I'll tell you what.
No, I'm serious. It's a sincere question. Yeah. If an FBI agent said, I've got a lot of questions for you, I'm not going to compel you. I just like to come in and talk. Would you do it without a lawyer?
I mean, of course you would do it with a lawyer.
Oh, why? Because you just tell the truth. You're fine.
Tucker, that's not. You're deflecting from the issue here. Like, if you want to have a conversation about Martha Stewart, I'd love to. We can get Martha. We can get Snoop Dogg. We can have a whole conversation.
I would just say, in parting, Joel, never speak to the FBI unless you have to.
Deal.
Thanks. Stormy Daniels' saga, meanwhile, proves the president, they say, and his cronies are predatory criminals. Okay, but if there's a crime here, what is the crime exactly, and who's the victim of it? You hear about the story every single day, but no one ever asked that. We're going to next with Mark Stein. Stay tuned.